Today, you're going to discover the 10 most important concepts in anti-gravity. Now, I've spent over 100 hours in anti-gravity, have my own app on the App Store, and I help businesses implement AI into their systems, and I do so with the help of anti-gravity. And it does not matter if you're a beginner or a pro, this video is for you. So let's start with the beginner concepts and then work our way up to the more advanced ones. So before actually diving into anti-gravity, this by far is probably the most important thing. It's the agent first development, and it is a mindset shift. Obviously, AI is causing a lot of disruption, and it's actually challenging how we view problems. So whenever you do have a problem or anything like that, I want you to consult with AI first. So your role shifts from coder to architect. So instead of the actual doing, which we all know very well, we're starting to kind of step away from that and be more of a manager of AI agents. And that's the beautiful part. And that's the agent first development. So what problem do you have and what problem can AI solve for you? So when you get into anti-gravity, you are met with kind of this homepage. You can just open up a folder and then create new, just like you would with any folder. And then you can kind of start that way, or you can clone a repository if you have a repo. But this is pretty much it here. Obviously, we have the panel on the side. We can do some stuff at the top here. We can just fully exit here. And then we do have workspaces, which are essentially just dedicated projects rather than the playground section, which I'll cover in a sec here. But this is pretty much it. So right now, I'm just going to come into our test folder, which is just for the sake of this video. I'm actually going to show you how to use Claude Code in anti-gravity without just toggling the models. But that's kind of the basic outline of things. We do have access to the terminal here. Some people use Claude through this. I'm going to show you a better way to use it. And then you can basically just start wherever you would like. To the left side panel here, this is where our work starts to populate. If we do build something out today, you will see this populate with a bunch of files. Don't worry, the beautiful thing about AI is you don't really need to understand what is taking place. Now, I do push back on that notion a little bit. I would still like you to understand and maybe even just go through the files so that you actually start improving your understanding of what it is actually building instead of just fully letting AI take things over and just build whatever it may build. If you've used AI in the past, yes, it's a very strong tool, but it does need those so-called guardrails to really focus on specific things that you're looking to create. So number two is manager view. I'm going to show you this in 1 second here. It's a dashboard where you dispatch multiple AI agents to work on different tasks simultaneously. And this is how you really start unlocking their productivity. Instead of kind of just creating multiple chats that could be disconnected, you're creating basically you're creating a hub or an umbrella where then you can kind of open up some new agents that are still having that context across work. So one builds your homepage, for instance, another fixes a bug, another writes docs, all running in parallel. And that's, again, how you really start to see the benefit of AI. So you can do multiple agents at once. You can monitor progress in real time and review results from one screen. So let me show you this here. Command E, right? So this is your agent manager. This is where you can start developing your project that you're looking to do. And as you can see here, we are under the folder. If I just click this, I can start any other folder I have. But obviously for this video, we're going to stick within this one. As you can see, I can come back to what you're already familiar with. That is kind of the home page, right? And all I have to do is just toggle this agent manager, just press on that, and we're back to our folder. Now, if I open up this sidebar here, again, very similar to what you saw, we have our workspaces and then our playground. We have our knowledge, our browser, which we'll get into a sec here, but this is the agent manager. So for instance, as you can see, I have some workspaces here. Just think of workspaces as like something you're really looking to do, right? So it's not like a draft. You're really looking to build something out. If you are looking to just draft something up or you have a quick idea, that is more so your playground. So if I can just come in here, I go new playground and we're ready to go. You can see I'm in the playground section. So as you can see, I can come in here and no chats have been started yet. So I can come in here, I can go new conversation, which is essentially just this. Help me build a content repurposing system. And I can start. And what it's going to do is it's going to help me build, again, the agent first development mindset, right? Now we do have a conversation started. And then it's going to give me a bunch of questions to begin. You can see I'm in Gemini 3.1 Pro and I'm in the planning phase. We're going to get all to that in 1 second. But this is the agent manager. And so while I'm, for instance, answering these questions, right, I can do that and then I can get back to work. What I can then do is I can start another conversation within the same project, right? So then I can come here and say, create me a landing page for this content repurposer. I can press on that. And now we have two conversations simultaneously working towards one goal, right? And then if we need, for instance, ads, which is a big common thing, we can come here, start something, create me ads for the content repurposing system. And you can see I have all three agents now working on one goal of this content repurposing system. So this becomes very handy, right? Because a lot of the time, if you are using, for instance, a chat, kind of going back and forth, you're gonna get some context slop. So this really helps hone in that, and you can just keep going and really finalize something within maybe an hour, right? So obviously we have the ad here, for instance, we have the content repurposing dashboard here for the landing page. And then we have our building content repurposing, right? So then we actually do have to just finalize these answers here. But as you can see, right, again, this is how you start unlocking the productivity. I'm gonna actually show you how to get better outputs than all of this, but for right now is that you can come in here under projects and just start getting to work and accomplishing a lot. So let's go into concept number 3, because that's also super important. So number 3 is artifacts. Is essentially the trust layer. Whether you're a beginner just looking to see if it is actually doing the work you want it done, or if you're a pro user just looking to see what it is completing for you, every agent action produces tangible proof. And this proof is like documents. I'm going to show you that in 1 second here. But for instance, it's going to give us task lists, implementation plans, screenshots, browser recordings, and code diffs. So you verify AI work without reading any code. And this is how it's basically going to communicate what it's doing with you on the coding side with actual just natural language. So it's a beautiful thing. And I assume you're familiar with Google Docs. It's essentially the same thing. So let me show you that. And we are working again on our content repurposing system. And I'm going to show you exactly what these artifacts are. So as you can see here, there are no artifacts generated, which is totally fine. Eventually, it'll probably start spitting out some artifacts for you. However, if we do look at the content repurposing landing page that we're trying to build, we do have a artifact, and we have it in the form of basically a planning walkthrough. Okay, so this is perfect. As you can see down here, we're going to talk about this in a bit. I am on the planning mode. All right, this is very important. This is where essentially I like to use it. But as you can see, we have a lot of artifacts taking place. So just like Google Docs, essentially it's just document. And since I am on the planning mode, it's going to give me essentially, it's going to create a task artifact. It's going to create implementation plan artifact, like I stated prior. And then it just gives us some walking through. And then if I do want to open up the walkthrough artifact, I can just press open. All right. And you already saw that here. And that's what this is. Okay. And as you can see, it's already actually developing a landing page for us. That's how powerful AI is. I'm going to talk about that in a sec here. I can download this artifact if I want to give it to a individual or whatever. I can come up here, review changes, open editor, toggle terminal, and then I can search. So prior, you would have a bit of like context rot. That's slowly going away with just bigger context windows. But if you have something that you want to basically search up, you can just look it up. And so as you probably are noticing, there is this blue rectangle, and I can comment on this line, which essentially, again, very much like docs, I can then start manipulating the actual artifact. Right, so just like I would here, let's do, if I don't want, for instance, this font, let's just do sans serif font. And as you can see here, it's now there, okay? So then I've commented, I can review, and I can submit. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to generate me essentially the adjusted or fixed walkthrough plan with the sans serif font, as we can see here. Thought process. I always love to pull down the thought process, again, just to get some insight of what it is actually doing, and then finalizing that by walking through with the artifact. While that is doing that, ads agent, and we're wanting ads, we don't have any artifacts in the form of essentially the documents, okay? But we do have artifacts in the sense of images. So again, if we just come up to here, we can see we have two artifacts, which are essentially just ad number 1 and ad number 2. Okay, I can review, so I can add anything. Let's do a 7-day free trial, add a comment, And I can either send it over here. I can review just to make sure. Review one comment. Okay, perfect. So I did underline that. And then I can just send this off and it's going to fix that. And we can see here with this circling icon, that is, obviously it is doing its thing. And then we are in the thinking mode, which is perfect. Okay, so let me just get out of here. And that is how cool artifacts are. So artifacts just aren't documents. And we can manipulate artifacts, which is very cool. It's already changed it to a 7-day free trial. Okay, so I've regenerated that ad for you. The button now correctly calls it the 7-day free trial. Look how super cool that is. So artifacts wouldn't be anything without concept number 4. And concept number 4 is super powerful. Essentially, you can look at Antigravity like a 3-in-1 platform. All right, super, super powerful. Now, it's an editor, terminal, and browser all in one. So agents operate across 3 services, right? You have the editor for code, which I showed you the editor when we first started. You have the terminal for commands if you want. I'm going to show you an easier way to use potentially Claude Code. That's basically what I'd use my terminal for. And the browser for visual testing. Now, we haven't touched upon the browser too much, but this enables end-to-end task completion. So you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it all in Antigravity. So these are kind of the 3 things, right? If I do want to open up my editor, I just have to come to here and it opens up my editor. Now, the cool thing is those artifacts we were talking about, they do populate in these tabs in your editor. So if you're not in the agent manager section, you can come to this view here and you can understand what is taking place, right? And as like I said at the beginning, this will start to populate and that's exactly what is taking place. Okay. Now you can just exit out all of this. Then here is when it starts to actually build stuff out. This is the code. So we do have the index HTML, which is just our landing page. And then you do have our styles, which essentially is just the background, the color, the type, all that good stuff. And then we do have the script. Now, what you can do, again, you can just exit out all of this. You can accept changes. You can do this. You can basically just batch accept as well. I'm going to show you that in just a sec. But again, this is the editor view. Now, if I do want to access the terminal, I can come down here and I can pull up my terminal here and use Claude. Originally, I was using Claude in this terminal. I'll show you a better way. Don't be afraid of your terminal. And then you can obviously just split and have multiple windows open, okay? So that's the terminal. Now, the browser is super important. Whenever you're kind of building something out, specifically a landing page or whatever, something that's going to be hosted on the web, essentially, usually it's going to use the browser for you. So as you can see here with our landing page, it actually did use our browser. So if we come in here, we can go to landing page feature. Now this here is actually our landing page. It used our browser just to see how it would function. And as you can see here, this is our browser and they have a recording of it because it is just testing it out. All right, number 5, and this is massive as well. I alluded to this earlier, but essentially you can control the approach. And that's kind of how I like to use AI. I don't want to augment my entire life. I want to rather control it. And you have 2 ways to do that. You have your plan mode and your fast mode. So your plan mode creates a full task list before coding. That's why we were seeing such artifacts being created. So ideal for complex features. Fast mode skips planning and executes immediately, ideal for quick fixes. So I rarely use fast mode. I want to plan first and you can switch anytime per task. So as you can see here, it's just this planning and fast mode. Planning, agent can plan before executing tasks. Again, that's why we have those artifacts being created. And then our fast mode is just agent will execute tasks directly without even asking for really approval. It just kind of starts completing things. Again, not the biggest fan of that. When it comes to these types of modes, it's important to note planning is super, super crucial. I don't hear really too many people talk about this. You want to spend like majority of your time planning with AI, right? AI is your sparring partner. You want to plan with it. You want to consult with it. You want to just ping pong back and forth before you have a solid idea. And if you're not liking what it's giving you, you can come into the artifacts, basically switch something out that you would prefer, and then you can say, keep brainstorming with me. And then we have number 6, which essentially you can look at who's driving the car. So review driven asks for approval frequently. Agent driven is full autopilot. And secure mode locks things down. So you can start cautious, loosen up over time. And that is kind of what I recommend for everybody. As I just mentioned, you want to plan first. And like I don't feel comfortable. Not that I don't feel comfortable, but I just don't want AI starting to spin up anything because when it starts, it's hard to stop, it's hard to backtrack. And again, there's just sometimes context rot. And with AI, if you lose kind of the core of what you're trying to build, it's hard to fix things. It's you're back and forth constantly, and it just becomes very annoying. Even sometimes it's even better just to start a new project and redo it again. So you have to be very careful with this type of stuff. Plan first, start cautious. Once you start seeing the outputs it is generating you, then you can kind of loosen up over time. Now, number 7, skills, probably one of the more impactful ones. This is just packaged instructions set that teach agents how to do specific tasks well. They load on demand only when relevant. That's the important part. If they was just reading it all the time, there would just be a ton of usage and just a ton of bloat across the entire LLM. And it's great at keeping context clean and output quality high. So you have on-demand loading, which is fantastic, reusable across projects, and build your own or install others. I'm not going to go too much into skills. You probably know what skills are already. I will say, beautiful thing with skills is you can so-called do a recurring prompt. And I'm using that word loosely, but essentially you can give it just some criteria for the skill to go through so that you do get high quality output. And the coolest part is you can either build your own. So if you have kind of your own proprietary frameworks, data that you want to use across different projects, you can do so, or you can install others. Also, you can do it conversationally. So if you have a chat or a project you're working on, you're like, hey, I would like to just bottle this into a skill because I can see myself using this across different projects, then you can do so as well. So it's very flexible, and skills essentially are just the employees doing the actual work. So the more context you give it, the better. The more references you give it, the better. And eventually you can start using other tools with it. So very impactful. Number 8 is MCP servers. Essentially, you can just connect things to the outside world. Model context protocol connects anti-gravity to external tools. So your Firebase, Gmail, any tools you really use, you can connect anti-gravity to. You can browse and install from the built-in MCP store, one-click integrations, database and cloud access, and customer service support. So if you are trying to get context and connect stuff to an outside world, right? So if you have a business and you're like, hey, I need it connected to Gmail, I need it connected to Slack or whatever the case may be, you can do that. So then number 9 is actually how to customize the agent to get the best type of outputs. So you can use rules and workflows. Rules, it's important to note, are always on guidelines. Okay, the agent follows automatically. Workflows are essentially saved prompts triggered on demand with /commands. Okay, so if you are in the Claude ecosystem, essentially it's like plugins. The workflows are essentially like plugins, and then your rules are kind of just guidelines the agent follows. The agent follows automatically. Most importantly, it's write once. So again, take some time planning these things out, and then you can always just benefit from them. So rules equals always active. It's just instructions. It's just instructions the agent is going to follow. So things like never delete anything, things like double check your work, things like always wait for my approval, things like that, just to make sure that this thing is not going outside the bounds of what you want. Workflows equal just on-demand things that are essentially built waiting for you to call them. And then you have global or per workspace. So if you have, for instance, rules that you want always on, again, like never delete things, always, if things are unclear, wait for my approval. Those you can use on a global basis, which just means the entirety of anti-gravity will adhere to those rules, right? If it's a per workspace basis, things are going to differ across projects. Then you can basically set workflows or rules within that certain project that you don't want globally. Whether you're using Cloud Code or using Antigravity, a lot of these ecosystems tend to just cross over. So you get familiar with one, you're pretty much familiar with a lot of them. Number 10, I'm going to give a bonus one after this. But for number 10, it's the browser integration. So the browser we talked already about. I'm going to show you it more in depth now, but its agents launch a real Chrome browser. It can navigate your app, click buttons, fill in forms, take screenshots, and record video walkthroughs, end-to-end visual verification. So it's real Chrome browser control. So this actually can control your entire browser. If you have enabled it on Claude, it's the same thing, automatic screenshots, and then video proof of testing. So let me show you that browsing agent up here. If I come to open editor, you can see there's a few ways I can kind of access this thing. Number one, if I do want to pull it up, I can just open up the browser. It's going to actually just open up a new tab. So this is it here. So it's the anti-gravity browser control. I'm very bullish on this type of technology, even on the Claude side of things. I think it's going to be able to do a ton of for you. Even with Claude, I know that's for a different video, but you can even just have the browser do things for you. So if you don't want to do tedious stuff, you can basically just tell your browser to, hey, fill out a certain form. So for instance, let's actually put this to use. Please ensure that my landing page works, all the buttons work, and that the CTAs scroll down to the form. So stuff like this, it will pull up the browser and it will do its thing to just check. That's great about it. So if we're just building quickly here, I can say, hey, double check that the browser's working, double check that the CTAs actually work, double check that the form works, and it does all this other stuff. And obviously I didn't have a sign up section, so now it's just going to do that for me. And then we can just look at what it does on the browser. So here it is. This is the browser. So turn one video into months of content. This is the repurposing system we are building. And as you can see, it is moving and it is working. All right, how cool is this? This is super cool, right? So again, it's testing things out. As you can see, test at example.com. Like super cool. And it's mind blowing. So if you're just building quickly and you want to use the browser, it can test some things and then it's going to come back to Antigravity and say, hey, everything worked, or I got to work some stuff out. This is kind of the plan I'm thinking about. Approve it. It's going to come back and fix it. All right, so I think you probably get the gist of things now. It's going to come back to usually what happens is it's going to ask me on the anti-gravity side of things. But now it's asking, right? So we have one step requires input to execute JavaScript, right? So we're just going to allow. And then if I were to look back on the browser, it's doing its thing. And there we go. We have a conclusion. The landing page is fully functional. The navigation buttons correctly link to the sign up form with smooth scrolling. Okay. Now it's important to acknowledge, right? This alone was just one-shotted very poorly on my side of things, right? I didn't even prompt it. I just said, hey, make me a landing page. And like, we should at least acknowledge, this is great, right? This is V1. I used to make Shopify websites and it would take me 2 weeks just to produce something that I would feel comfortable with. And now we have something in 3-4 minutes. Is it 10 out of 10? No, that's not the point though. We have a features page. Perfect. Boom, boom. And it did say, yeah, how it works. Perfect. I guess we don't have a pricing section. So that's one thing. We would say, hey, can you add a pricing section in and make sure that the pricing on the menu works, right? And then we can get started. Boom, comes back here and we can get started. So that's the browsing feature. And then I can come in here and it's essentially just going to give us a review of essentially what it did for us. Because it is, again, it's basically screen recording when it uses the browser. So we have changes made, right? If anything was off, if we want to change anything, verification, run an automated browser test. Perfect. As you can see, this is it here. We can see it's nicely basically just suggesting what this is. Hero section layout, features, preview, sign up form, and navigation, right? And then again, we would say, hey, make sure the pricing button works with a pricing section on the landing page. And by the way, if you want to stay up to date on all the latest on AI, because I know how fast this space moves, please consider subscribing. Helps very much. If you stayed to the end here, I'm going to give you a bonus. So it would just pop up the terminal via Antigravity because it is an IDE. And they would basically just call upon Claude. And they'd use it via the terminal just like you would in Claude Code. Okay. Now, I don't like the user experience via the terminal. There's a better way to do it, at least in my opinion. Now, that is if you come to this panel that we don't really use too much, and you come to extensions, we have Claude Code for VS Code. And as you can see, it is currently installed. And this is how I use Claude via Antigravity. All right. And as you can see, there's a ton of other extensions here, and they even give you a recommended section. Okay. But this extension, okay, has allowed me to not only use Claude Code, but I have the full functionality of Claude Code as well. And all you're going to do is just double tap. Once you double tap, you can see Claude up here, and I can use it. I can basically just call upon many different agents to do kind of the similar stuff. Now, why would I use, as you can see, probably, I have both the option to use it here, correct? And I also have the ability to use it here. Now, depending on who you talk to, Opus 4.6, depending on who you talk to, some people think this option here is slightly nerfed, which just means it's a bit of a weaker version rather than actually using it via the extension or just in Claude Code. Okay. Potentially it is. Don't want to comment too much on that side of things. But just know I can use Claude Opus here, right? Or if I just want more functionality, all right, as you saw here. And all obviously we would do, I can come in here, I can switch my model just like I would in any type of instance, and I can do a bunch of stuff, right? Thinking, boom, 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 and I'm ready to go and create a bunch of stuff. Okay, and I find this is a way better experience rather than using it via the terminal. So hopefully that was helpful. And this is essentially going to turn a beginner to pro and just get you more comfortable with AI. Subscribe if you like this type of content and you want to stay up to the latest and greatest in everything AI. And I will see you next time. And as always, my friends, stay human.